Well, welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight. My name is Dan O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas, and I'm so excited for our conversation here today with James Jackson Leach. James, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of work into a bit of introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are and really what you're doing today for business.
Yeah, as Tanner said, my name is James Jackson Leach. I born and raised in Austin, Texas. Been in a variety of industries, from software and portfolios all the way to bars and restaurants and breweries, retail in general. Right now, my main focus is the commodity of raw protein. I own and operate a couple of butcher shops across Austin, Texas. And now I'm focusing on the co-packing industries within raw protein, white labeling for other brands, and then eventually we'll be opening a facility for raw dog food manufacturing.
Nice. That's really cool. So as you look at some of the pieces you got moving at this point, for those that are listening that may want to have an opportunity to, work with you, buy from you, who would you say is kind of your target client or target person? How would I know if I'm like the perfect person to reach out and say, hey, I want to do some business with you?
Yeah. So we have several licenses. We have several licenses, wholesale, retail. We've also recently got some government contract permits lined up. But if you're a restaurant in the Austin area, or Central Texas area, we process wholesale. So if you need, whether it's 500 pounds of chicken or you need 100 filet mignon cut exactly to your specifications, we do that from a wholesale perspective. So an ideal customer for us is a restaurant. Typically the small to medium-sized restaurants. Most of the big ones have contracts with Cisco or US Foods where they have to keep buying their styrofoam and straws, otherwise they get charged more on other items if they don't keep up a certain volume. But so wholesale, and the other half would just be retail. That could be walking in and we cut to order anything you want, whether it's a 2-inch thick T-bone or you just need some bacon for your breakfast. We offer all that. And from a retail perspective, so Longhorn Meat Market offers all this in Austin, Texas. But if you want to get a subscription box from us, which is delivered overnight straight to your door in all 50 states except Hawaii and Alaska, then you can try out our cuts out anywhere else in the country.
And it sounds delicious. I'm curious, for kind of wholesale for restaurants is kind of one target market for you. Is that primarily local, regional, nationwide? What's the reach for restaurants that you would want to work with?
It's mostly pretty hyper local, Austin and surrounding cities. We do wholesale at larger levels, but it gets into more like brokering, where there's a large restaurant group in a certain area and we're able to send 10,000 pounds of frozen bones to them because we buy enough of them for other reasons, so we have a good deal on them. But overall, it's for restaurants in the Austin and surrounding area.
Excellent. So I'm curious, talk a little bit about where you're at today and what the business is, that sort of thing. But as you look back on kind of your journey into entrepreneurship, business ownership, is this kind of the path that you had always intended to take? Tell me a little bit about that journey of what led you here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everyone would agree that you always land in a completely opposite place than where you thought you would and where you started off from. I started off in filmmaking, thinking I was going to be a Hollywood producer. I used to write a bunch of theatrical plays. I used to produce a bunch of theater. And then I was really young though when I started off doing that. One day when you're 19 years old and you got 30 or 40 people running around on stage performing Shakespeare for you, you realize you have a small business pretty much. So I kind of started off in the arts, and then through that, through like a lot of mountaineering and overall climbing and things like that, you kind of gather a little bit more of your callous and your determination and kind of leadership style, and then you just decide that well, you don't decide, it kind of decides for you. You're sometimes you just can't decide that you're going to be an entrepreneur. You just wake up and you're already doing it.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. I always love asking that question, what the journey looks like, because it's so different for everybody. And while some people are like, yeah, I totally always wanted to be an entrepreneur, move into owning a business, most of the time it's, you know, I kind of fell into it by one way, shape, or form, and then kind of found out I kind of liked it, that sort of thing. So it's always interesting to me to hear kind of that story of
Well,
how you got into it.
I started something, dropped out of college because I thought, oh, I did something and now it's working. So I dropped out of school, and then it failed miserably after like just 5 months or something like that. And then I was like, well, I guess I need to start something else. And that's kind of just how it unfolds. And at this point, it's easier for me to like start something than it would be for me to. I have no vocational skills, as I tell my friends. Like seriously, I'm like the most unhireable person out of all my group, out of all my network.
I like that. It's a fun tidbit of information. So as we kind of look at this here, typically the journey in entrepreneurship, just overall in the long spectrum, isn't always a perfectly linear, smooth path. Typically, there's some ups and some downs, some challenges, or roadblocks to overcome. I'm curious, especially for those that are listening to this, or maybe a little bit newer into business. When you look back on your journey thus far, what has been kind of one major challenge or hurdle that you've had to overcome along your journey?
I'm glad that I learned fairly early on that I'm terrible at accounting, and it's the saying, like, people say you should, well, they used to say take your weaknesses and lift them up a little bit, but the new mode of thought for I guess 15 years or so now has been just focus solely on your strengths. So I was just grateful that early on I realized how bad I was at bookkeeping and doing all that stuff, and I belonged in like a business development role where pretty much all I did was just do biz dev and grow my own stuff. So from a very early age, I just, even though it sucks and it costs a lot of money, you don't have that money in the beginning, hire accountants, hire bookkeepers, make sure your franchise tax is filed on time every year, because that's a burden of society as an entrepreneur, is to have to think about those things that don't excite you.
Oh, that is such a good way to look at that burden of having to worry about things that don't excite you.
Just entrepreneurism, you don't start going into entrepreneurism to like file your taxes and franchise tax forms and sales tax forms every year. You're trying to like build and grow and do marketing, and people get so caught up in that aspect of it that they don't think about all those other little things that are actually quite big. So I just messed up a few times, ran really quickly, just like go. At the end of the year, you're like, oh shit, you gotta like gather up all your receipts. And this is when you're young, I'm talking to like young people when I say things like this. But now I'm just glad that anytime I'm starting anything new, the first person that's involved before even my potential co-founder is an accountant. Like, set up my books, set up all this account stuff, get all my stuff incorporated, have a management company that's on lockdown, start paying them, and then go out and do what you need to do, because you can go faster if you have that kind of foundational team underneath you from an admin perspective. It's changed everything.
Absolutely. So when you look at learning some of those lessons, now operating at a point where you put those foundational pieces in place, how would you describe the impact of that to your businesses, having that in place versus not having it in place?
Well, it catches up on you, and then once you learn the lesson, you realize the emotional bandwidth you have, and then you have extra, you have more of, because you have those things in place. But also at the end of the year, tax season, and then you get so bogged down by all that stuff that I remember being very young in my entrepreneurial days, and it gives you anxiety because you're like, these forms are just so daunting when you're just starting off when you're young, and you find out that you didn't do your sales tax right. I was exporting water to Europe, this water brand that was pretty cool. But since it was sparkling, apparently, you have to charge sales tax of that on that. If I didn't know, I was like, oh, it's bottled water. There's no sales tax on it. And then you find out, 18 months later that you owe a shit ton of money. And then just little things like that. So time, energy, you get more time, energy, and eventually you'll have more money. You end up spending more of it up front. But I think that's the biggest psychological thing is telling yourself that you do have the money instead of saying, oh, I can't afford this $500 a month management company at first, set up my QuickBooks and just have a retainer with them. So if you put stuff in Dropbox and you send them things to document, or if you pay yourself and do whatever you need to do, you just have someone that you can tell them what you're doing. And at any moment, you can export a solid ass balance sheet and a P&L statement, which is another thing people don't think about. Is then they go to the bank or later on, like, oh, I need to go get a loan. I need to get a loan. But if you don't have all the stuff set up from day one, a banker's going to look at that and go, "This shit's a mess," and you're not going to get a loan if that's what you're doing. So,
oh, you were saying all the things that I just I wish others would really take into forefront when they're getting into business. That's so important, especially when it comes to securing financing in any way, that sort of thing. So
private investors too,
really
not
crucial.
Not just bankers, obviously, but private investors especially.
Yes. So I heard you mention to a degree mindset, especially when it comes to that I can't afford it versus this is something that needs to be done. How do we afford it, or something like that instead? How would you describe the importance of mindset, or how you should approach your own mindset as a business owner going into business and tackling challenges in general? Because I know that there can be big challenges, little challenges, but what's your take on mindset?
Well, that's a big question. I honestly think that sounds a little harsh, but if someone is setting out on the world of entrepreneurialism, if someone tells them something like, don't do it, it's hard, and if that person were to not pursue entrepreneurism because they were told how hard it is, that person would have not succeeded anyway in entrepreneurism, in my opinion, because it's just brutal. And also, you have outliers where people start something from their dorm room and it blows up and they've never, had to do anything else since. But oftentimes people who have huge successes in the beginning haven't actually learned how to run a business yet, and then later on they learn it. But I think the mind frame is just you just have to wake up and have the structure to create your own habits and patterns in order to get the work done, because you don't have, especially in the beginning, you don't have some project manager writing you tickets. It's like, here's what you're doing today. You are the one creating all that for yourself and anyone else helping you along the way up until you have 5 or plus employees on a startup. So you really just have to have that such tenacity where you can bulldoze through tons of things and wear all the hats and all that stereotypical stuff. It's really true. So the mind frame is really just, you have to have follow through. That's the number one, that's the greatest skill on earth, I think, is follow through. And it's one of the most rare as well.
Couldn't agree with you more. So we've talked a lot about really the journey, kind of that past history, that sort of thing. I'm curious, as we look towards the futures, we look towards the next year, the next 2 years, 5 years, what gets you excited about your business? What kind of what's upcoming, or what do you see as kind of the next frontier, the next exciting piece for you that gets you up in the morning and keeps you going and building your business?
Well, to tell the world the truth, money. I'm, you know, that's my primary goal in life right now. Is just make as much money as possible. I do believe in people, product, profits. Like, I believe that. I follow that. People oftentimes that work for you don't know that you're paying them a lot more than you're paying yourself, and oftentimes you're not paying yourself at all. And after 15 years or so of building various foundational things and growing success, I finally have a team around me, both from a financial partner level through high-end management level, all the way through to younger people that are just entering the workforce, and the people that are managing them, that I'm finally able to really focus on growth and making a bunch of money. So that's kind of what I'm really getting excited about, is how can I grow the company instead of growing 20% a year. Now I'm in a position where we can grow it 50, 60% a year. So
Beautiful. It's one of those, I don't know if I want to say overlooked, but maybe not as often admitted as it should be. Businesses are meant to make money, and it's, yes, take care of people, you got to take care of your customers, your team, all of that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, there's got to be profits, and you got to build that. Otherwise, that's the point of business. So it's exciting to hear some of that. If you were to go back and give advice to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
Buy more Bitcoin. Because I did buy it very, very young. So just not as much as I should have. No, it would be it would have been the thing I said earlier. Hire the accountants sooner. That's what I should have done. I kid anyone. I kid you not. Like, doing that early on, if you're the type of entrepreneur who does not have a financial background, like if you're going to school for finance and you have some app idea for finance and you have just been studying that, parents were really good with teaching you finances from the early age, which no one is financially literate. Like, very few people are taught that in their upbringing. So it'd be odd if you were, but it'd be great. But yeah, I think that is the number one thing. And then one of the things that I should have also done sooner is build my network out more with an investor mentality, because once you have some money and you can sit at a table full of other people and actually say to them, like, hey, let's do this little prototype. Like, y'all pitch in 10, I'll put in 10. Or, hey, you put in 50, I'll put in 50. Once you're at that level in entrepreneurism and in business, that's when you can build out your network with more of a financial purpose. You want to keep building your network in general, to call upon people in various sectors when you need them. But when you are a serial entrepreneur, you need to be able to pick up your phone at any moment and say, I've got a great deal for you, and be able to send that out to 100 people. Like, you have to be able to do that. So if you're one time, starting a business and you grow it for 10 or 15 years and it becomes your job, then that's one thing. But I've raised money for movies, I've produced movies, I've done these other things, and I know that I'm going to do another thing, 3 or 4 years from now if I ever sell my company. So I'm already thinking, like, what is that going to be, and who do I need to be surrounded by? You really have to think about marketing before you ever start marketing. So, like, what am I going to do in 4 years? How am I going to build that up now? Oh, I should start going to more Web3 conferences now, knowing that in 4 years from now, I'm going to start this thing that I want to do.
Wow, that is such good advice.
That was a long answer.
It's a phenomenal answer. You hit on some really good stuff for starting, but I would agree. There's probably maybe too much emphasis in the marketplace to go out and build your network on people you want to sell to, and not enough on who do you need in your network for the long term. in various different ways. And there's a lot of value to that. You can also add value to others. And yeah, that's a massive.
Yeah.
benefit.
Also just lead generation. I should have started that. Like during the pandemic, like I don't know why I didn't put more energy on even just putting up a LinkedIn lead form and say, hey, we're going to open up 2 more butcher shop locations. I see you're into the keto diet and you're into CrossFit. You're a senior partner at this law firm, blah blah blah. Like, we're opening a butcher shop and you're part of town. Would you like to look at some financial projections in a slide deck and consider being a limited partner with us? Like, I could have spent $5,000 and sent that out during the pandemic to 10,000 people, and when I came out of the pandemic, I would have had enough partner financing to go open 2 or 3 more butcher shops right out of the gate. But you get stuck in the day-to-day operations that the saying, you're working on your business, not for your business. You work for the business, not on the business. So just kind of thinking ahead. Gotta always be thinking ahead.
Beautiful. Well, James, I want to be respectful of time. So I've got kind of one final question I'd like to ask you before I jump into that one. How can viewers or listeners find out more about you, or if they want to either connect with you or learn more about your business, that sort of thing? Where's the best place to direct them?
Really, my website, jamesjacksonleach.com, or Twitter, Jackson Leach, Leach. That's kind of where I treat it like a hub on everything. So if they want to learn more about movies I'm making, or Web3 crypto stuff, or the butcher shops or anything like that, jamesjacksonleach.com, and then Twitter at Jackson Leach.
Beautiful. All right, James. Final question of the interview. I always love to end on this one, but what's most inspiring to you today?
That's another good question to have spontaneously thrown at you. My gut answer to that is the blockchain, Web3. I believe that it's going to empower a future generation. There's kids that are teenagers right now who don't even remember a world without Bitcoin. And just as there were kids born into a world where they had laptop computers, like, we have no idea what these people are going to do and innovate with this kind of foundational technology. I think it's going to empower a new generation of people to how they're going to make money, and it's going to lift people into the middle class. So I'm pretty excited about that, the stuff that I'm working on in that regard. But it's, from a non-business perspective, what's inspiring me as well is just going back to journaling, writing my daily haikus and keeping my mind separated for a period of the day just to relax and not always be thinking about business and making money.
It's fantastic. Such a good answer. Well, James, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time today, sharing a little bit of your story, a little bit about your journey overall, excitements, inspirations, things like that. So it's been really cool chatting with you about all of this. Appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for being here with me today.
Yeah, thank you.